Have you ever looked at a piece of art and wondered why it looks so good? Like there's something about it that you just can't quite put your finger on it. It just looks right. Your second thought might be, how can I make art that looks like this? Today I'm going to share with you one simple principle that all artists follow in order to make art that just looks right. Let's talk about what makes art aesthetically pleasing and how your art can make people go, ooh. We can't talk about aesthetics without first talking about taste. So let's talk about taste. We first have to acknowledge that taste is highly subjective. What we think of as universally beautiful may not be as universal as we might think. Look at this wonderfully inoffensive painting. This is Monet's Impression Sunrise, commonly thought of as the first Impressionist painting. In fact, the title of the piece, Impression Sunrise, and the term Impressionist was coined by a critic as a backhanded compliment of sorts, an insult. The Salon des Refusés, an exhibition held by artists rejected from the Paris Salon, was met with public ridicule. Viewers crowded and gathered in galleries just to laugh at the paintings. Paintings by Jerome, Pissarro, Cézanne, paintings that we would look at today and wonder why anyone would call them ugly. We must not take for granted these differences in sensibilities. Especially today with our culture so segmented into different niches, we must be aware of what our niche finds beautiful and aesthetically pleasing. What we find aesthetically pleasing is highly determined by where we were born, when we were born, and what socioeconomic class we were born into. To say that there is a one-size-fits-all formula for making art that is universally aesthetically pleasing is foolish. However, there is one underlying principle that we can use to reliably create aesthetically pleasing art for the niche that we are targeting. One that we can manipulate in order to create beautiful art. Take a look at this outfit and tell me what's wrong with it. If you guess the sneakers, then we have the same taste. Yes, Brad Pitt is a good-looking man, but I think this is a bad outfit because sneakers with a black tie suit goes against the principle of aesthetic coherence. The idea behind aesthetic coherence is that things that belong together look good together. Whenever we look at something, whether it's an outfit or a room or a piece of art, we immediately sense if something belongs or does not belong. So what makes things belong together? When objects are drawn from the same historic or stylistic era, there are some inherent similarities in form, texture, and craftsmanship. For instance, combining mid-century modern furniture with art and decor from the 1950s feels intuitive because all these items are informed by the same cultural values, technological innovations, and design trends. You can apply that same line of thinking to your art as well. A medieval fantasy character would look off if they were wearing a baseball cap. One of my favorite examples of this is the game Dishonored. While fantastical Dishonored still adheres to the aesthetics of the style of London in the late Victorian era, so even though they had all this crazy sci-fi stuff in the game, by strictly following the aesthetics of a specific time period, they've managed to create a world that felt believable and aesthetically pleasing. Even the most fantastical pieces of art, whether it's games or movies or anime, draw their visual inspirations from specific time periods. Aesthetic coherence doesn't mean limiting creativity, it means anchoring your ideas in a framework that gives them weight and believability. By studying the forms, materials, and cultural context of real-world styles, you can blend the fantastical with the familiar in a way that feels seamless. Whether you're illustrating a sci-fi city or a mythical kingdom, grounding your designs in a consistent visual language, often inspired by real historical aesthetics, will make your world feel more immersive, more alive, and ultimately more compelling to your audience. Think of how Ponyo's color pencil backgrounds contribute to its whimsical, innocent story, or how the black and white starkness of Limbo adds to the sense of dread. Aesthetic coherence in art style is more than just visual treatment. It's the artistic choices that are made to support a piece's emotional impact, tone, and story. For example, in Impressionist painting, the use of loose brushstrokes, emphasis on natural light and vibrant, unblended colors all contribute to a sense of harmony within the work. So here's a list of aspects that you can manipulate. Think of them as sliders that you can push and pull in order to achieve the tone and emotional impact that you want. First, consider line work. Is it clean and sharp or loose and expressive? Think about the emotional impact a character drawn with loose, squiggly lines would make versus a character that was drawn with straight, sharp lines. Try it out for yourself. Draw the same character in two different art styles and observe how differently they make you feel. Shapes and forms also matter. Are your characters drawn with stylized shapes and proportions or intricate, realistic anatomy? Even lighting and shading styles, flat versus rendered, should align across all elements in a piece or project. There's also use of textures. How crunchy do you want these textures to be? Are they real world textures or digitally generated? How much texture do you want to use? These choices will ultimately affect how your piece feels, and if all these choices feel like they're pointing in the same direction, well then you've achieved aesthetic coherence. A consistent and coherent art style acts as a sort of glue that binds all these elements together in order to create a singular, cohesive art piece. If you've been dreaming about turning your art into merch but don't want to deal with the hassle of bulk orders or shipping, listen up. Printful is your best kept secret for building a sustainable merch business without the upfront costs. With Printful, you don't need to pre-order stacks of t-shirts and hoodies in the hopes that they sell. Printful also seamlessly integrates into major e-commerce sites like Shopify, Etsy, and TikTok. So that means when someone clicks buy on your shop, Printful prints it and ships it for you on demand. That means zero inventory, no wasted money, and more time focused on creating. And it's not just t-shirts. You can put your artwork on hoodies, tote bags, posters, phone cases, the list goes on. Expanding your product line is as simple as a few clicks. Printful handles everything for you. That includes printing, shipping, and packaging, and they've got fulfillment centers across the United States and Europe. So that means that your fans can get their orders fast and without extra fees. Printful also offers outstanding product quality. Your art will look amazing and your customers will be happy and keep coming back for more. So if you're ready to turn your creativity into a real business, start your merch brand today with Printful. Now, most of the time when we say a coherent color palette, what we really mean is a limited color scheme. And it's true. Let's go back to fashion. It's so much easier to put together an outfit with pieces that are similar in color. Now, is it impossible to compose an outfit that is wild and multicolored? No, of course not, but that's a lot harder to do and requires much more deliberation. Now, there's a wide variety of color palettes to choose from in order to help your paintings. Color palettes like the Zorn palette, for instance, can help you limit your color choices so you don't stray too far. There are plenty of other color palettes that you can use, things like the analogous color palettes, the complementary, the split complement. There's so many of them. But the general idea is that they help you limit your colors to a certain range so it doesn't look too crazy and nothing feels off. Again, this rule is not necessarily set in stone. Adventure Time is a great example of a wide color palette that's done well. Even then, despite the highly saturated colors, it's still relatively subdued in terms of the hue range from shot to shot. When colors are chosen thoughtfully, whether it's through analogous, complementary, or monochromatic color schemes, they help establish a sense of order and flow, making the design feel both intentional and visually satisfying. And here's an easy win for you. Before even starting on your drawing, pick a color palette, just work on it and then stick to it. There are a bunch of tools out there to help you choose a color palette. I like using Adobe Color, but there are so many of them out there. It's a lot easier to work out what colors you want to use beforehand rather than trying to figure it out on the fly. Now, all this talk of aesthetic coherence might make you feel restricted. Like if you just adhere to the rules of aesthetic coherence, you would be stuck in a mold and your pieces might end up feeling generic. That's entirely possible, but I think it's a good starting point because of course, you can then break the mold. Contrast is one of the most effective tools in an artist's toolkit, whether it's drawing the viewer's eye, emphasizing key elements, or creating visual hierarchy. It can be light versus dark, saturated versus muted, or even realistic versus abstract. But the key is intention. Contrast needs a reason to exist. When it feels arbitrary or excessive, it can disrupt the overall cohesion of the piece and break the viewer's immersion. Ask yourself, what am I emphasizing and why am I emphasizing it? Because if your reason is that it just looks cool, it's gonna fall flat and break that coherence. Yes, you can make sneakers work with a suit, but every other part of that outfit is going to have to support that decision. It cannot just be an isolated instance of subverting expectations. When your contrasting choices are grounded in purpose, it enhances your aesthetic coherence as opposed to undermining it. And aesthetic coherence isn't just about following the rules just for the sake of it. It's about making purposeful choices that support the story that you're trying to tell. Whether you're making character designs, environment art, or editorial illustrations, every visual decision you make sends a message. When your styles, your colors, your shapes, your references all are coherent, your work gains a lot more clarity. And then when you break that harmony with any kind of contrast, your work becomes all the more powerful because you've set up this strong visual foundation with aesthetic coherence. So as you're working in your own stuff, try to look at your favorite art pieces and figure out what makes them so cohesive, what makes them so coherent. Look beyond what just looks cool and figure out why it looks cool. Dive into its history, understand its design movements, why it was following certain visual rules and what coherence it was trying to adhere to. When you understand these, you can use this for yourself, and it makes your pieces look all the more intentional and all the more impactful. Remember, it's about finding the threads that tie everything together. It's about the right elements in the right context.
My A camera, which is the camera that I use most of the time. But then there's also this camera, which is the Sony ZV-1, and I use that as my second camera. And then there's also this one, which is my phone. It's the C camera. It's convenient to have. It's a phone.
Let's talk about what you need to learn how to draw in order to be able to draw mechs and robots.